Welcome back.
Hello.
Right, now you've had a good reception, first episode.
I
Mum
know.
loved you.
Oh, that's good.
You're talking about your mother-in-law the first time. Now my Indian mum loves my white friend, and that's really
Well,
great.
that's a chick. That's a chick, isn't it? God, if your mother likes me, I must be onto something.
mate. It was good. Thank you. I appreciate it. It was awesome.
No stress, no
And look,
stress.
I wouldn't have put it out unless you told me to mind my language, but sack up and just put it out. And don't worry about it.
People are going to think that I'm the only person you ever have on here.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like me the first time. And
Don't worry,
me the second one.
I've sorted it out. Like I've got my friend coming in on Thursday, so I'll post that episode. I'm doing it bi-weekly, you see. So I'm posting him next week, then you the week after.
Right. Okay, so
You're pretty much Brian Redban. You're my Brian Redban. So you said it yourself. You're
another ugly white man.
Yourself, self-professed Brian Redban. Right.
I don't mind being Brian Redman.
No. Not as funny, but it's all right. You'll get there.
I'm pretty funny.
Yeah, you are.
I feel like that's how I maintain 90% of my relationships is my ability for humor.
The humour? Yeah.
I'd be quite not as exciting if I wasn't as humorous.
Righto. So before we already know what we're going to talk about. Talking about Jiu Jitsu today.
Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Yep. So there are two quotes that I want to talk about. Oh, we'll start with the first one.
Okay.
And we can just kind of riff off of that. And I want to
Easy.
see your thoughts based on this quote, okay?
Okay.
In the lens of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, right?
Okay.
It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Oh, I love that one.
That's a good one. I don't know if a lot of the viewers will know that one. If you listen to Joe Rogan, you would have heard this a lot.
I want to get, and as cliche as this is, I want to get that tattooed in Portuguese somewhere on my body.
That's the most Brazilian Jiu Jitsu thing.
In like a really nice font, like maybe here on my chest, right on the left pec. Yeah, that's a good one. And I think it is particularly relevant in 2022. We're in 2022 now. That's a bit scary.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people don't encounter confrontation in their daily lives. Everything's very easy now. You don't
I think maybe they encounter confrontation, but not in like dire straits anymore. If you have a disagreement with someone, it's usually about like, a Karen coming in to complain about a cable or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when people do have these confrontations, a lot of the time they get quite aggressive, but they don't know what that can lead to.
Well, it's interesting, and I've heard probably one of my favorite intellectuals ever, Mr. Jordan Peterson, talk about this, is when you have a modern confrontation, there's not necessarily the underlying case for violence at the end of the confrontation if it reaches its maximum output, right? If you have an argument with someone in the warehouse, it's probably at the end of it only going to result in a lot of verbal abuse between the two people in the confrontation. Whereas back in the 1200s, if you and I were having an argument over wheat because you stole some, I might pull out my dagger and try to stab you, and you might pull out your mace and try to hit me across the head.
Exactly.
Right? And so, tying it in with the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, I mean, you and I do this thing, and it's some people find it weird, but it's effectively quite a violent activity that we partake in.
Well, absolutely. You come in, the smile on your face, and you leave maybe with a smile on your face, and 90% of the time you don't leave with a smile on your face. But
yeah, you might.
You come back the next day, you come back the next week, and you're ready for more. That's for sure.
You might leave with a few marks on your face if you've gotten to it a bit violently. But I think what it is at the end of the day is it's an exercise in potential outcome of any situation that you might encounter. If something does happen to get violent in the warehouse when you're fighting over something, it's useful to have, and you never want to use it.
No, God, no.
If someone came up to me in a street fight and I was with my girlfriend and they said, "Oh, let's have a go," I'd be like, "All right, we're running away."
Yeah.
You always want to be able to run away. If you can't, then you might have to
use the tools in your arsenal.
You might have to become violent.
Yeah.
No one wants that. There's no good outcome to pure violence. It's never a good thing. You may think you're an old big macho man, or You know, and I'm 6'2", I'm 100 kgs. I'm not a small guy. But there could be a small guy that wants to have a go at me that has a knife. And what am I going to... Well, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is not that useful when someone has a knife.
Or a gun.
Or a gun.
Especially with a gun.
I can't rear naked choke a bullet, right?
Yeah.
But I think bringing it back to the quote, if you want to go around living your life in a passive manner, that's fine. You probably get away with it. The likelihood that if you live in a nice first world country like New Zealand that you're going to encounter violence is quite low, unless you put yourself in some particularly heinous situations where you might encounter it regularly, some type of jobs, maybe a police officer or private security, or if you're in the club scene a lot, you might encounter some fisticuffs. But I guess most of us don't do jiu-jitsu for the just-in-case moment that we need to break someone's leg or anything like that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think it's allowing us to have the capacity for that if it comes about. Because it's like there's another saying, I'd rather have a gun and not use it than need it and not have it.
Oh, that's my next quote.
Well, exactly.
that I'll bring up.
Well, exactly.
I like what you said about the, if you want to live a passive lifestyle, then by all means do. You know what I mean? Like the way, especially living in New Zealand, living in a lot of these first world countries, you live like a relatively safe life compared to other places in the world.
Yep.
But I'll read this one out. I'm misquoting, but it's close enough.
That's illegal.
It's close enough. It's not though.
Go on. What is it?
You must have moments where you are a lion to be the lamb you truly are inside. And
Or like that.
yeah.
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 I'll relate that to another Jordan Peterson one, where he talks about what a good man really is, and I'm not being sexist. I only use the word man because it's part of his explanation. But a quote from the Bible is, "The meek shall inherit the earth," and that sounds weird when you first hear it. You think meek, you think some weak, flimsy
like a weedy
person.
Yeah,
right. But what it effectively means is those who have the weapons to destroy the earth and know how to sheathe them, know how to keep them under control, will be in control of all things. So it's like we have nuclear weapons, right? It's like carry the bigger stick but talk softly.
Yeah.
Which is, again, related to jiu-jitsu. If you've been training any proper martial art that's not kung fu, right, or something silly, if you're a boxer, if you do Muay Thai, if you Taekwondo, Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, any actual martial art, and you've been doing it for a few years and you're reasonably good at it within your martial arts circle, if you then compare yourself to the regular population, you're probably quite more lethal than the average person. But again, what the first thing is they train, I was in judo since I was like 12, 13. I've been in martial arts my whole life. And the first thing they teach you is you never use this as a starter. So you never train a martial art and then go start fights.
Yeah.
Right, so effectively linking that back is you have the capacity of a lion to go eat anything you want, but you need that capacity in order to be in touch with your softer side. Because if you have no capacity for violence, you can't understand the harm that it causes.
Absolutely.
You can't understand the capacity of when it's necessary and when it's not.
100% I agree.
And if you can't do that, then you don't know where the line is. And so you can't be a soft little lamb with your family and your friends and your girlfriend, because you don't necessarily know if everything goes down where you're going to sit with that. Because if you don't have any weapons of a martial art or even a physical weapon, you get into a confrontation, you're either going to go crazy or you're just going to whimper and die. So you have to have the extreme to be able to come back to the normal.
And just, if you want to, like you said, if you just want to chill, you don't want to be a fighter, you don't want to go to the UFC or any of that kind of stuff, totally chill. Yeah, absolutely. You still have to, I think it's still important to go out and do these things. And you've known me for a while now. How long has it been?
Years.
Many years.
Many years.
The context in which you met me is choir, which is on the opposite spectrum of jiu-jitsu.
I don't want to offend anybody, but it could be closer to the lamb than the lion.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. There have been moments where I've been roared at, for sure.
I'm sure it was only verbal, though.
Yeah.
Verbal
No,
violence.
absolutely.
Which can sometimes be bad or even worse than physical violence, depending on who it's coming from and what is said. But let's talk about you with this for a minute, because your transformation is actually quite amazing. You first, it's so funny, I still remember the first day I saw you come to Jiu-Jitsu. We were back at Bucklands Beach at the old club location. It's now in Pakuranga Plaza. By the way, if you want to
I believe that was the OG club, right?
That was the OG
club.
After the garage. So it all started in the garage. By the way, if you want to train in one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu clubs in Auckland, go to Bucklands Beach Jiu-Jitsu under black belt Andy Midcalf. The GOAT.
Shout out.
Ultra heavyweight champion of Jiu-Jitsu black belt in New Zealand. It's opposite F45 in Pakuranga Plaza. So when you first arrived, I saw you across the car park. You were walking across, kind of looking over your shoulder, looking a bit dainty, looking a little bit nervous. And I was like, Sid! And you're like, oh my God!
No, inside I was thinking, no. I wasn't expecting to know anybody, I wasn't expecting to know anyone there.
Yeah.
And then I saw you. I was like, oh, God, what have I gotten myself into now?
How was your first class? Do you remember? Do you remember what it felt like?
Yes. I knew in my head that I was prepared for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I was prepared to get smashed up. If I got smashed up, then that's what it was. I didn't really have, any basis of what jiu-jitsu was besides what I saw on the UFC, and even then there's so many more factors that come into it. I never knew what pure jiu-jitsu was.
So how'd you arrive to the club? Because often people don't just type in things to do for fun online and then come across a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club and go, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to wrestle with other fully grown sweaty men
James,
and try
if you have
to
to
break
ask
each other's arms and strangle each other. How did this come about? Because for me, it came from judo.
Yeah.
I stopped judo. I was getting too many concussions being thrown on my head, and I naturally transitioned into something with less head trauma in jiu-jitsu, just a grappling martial art. But you just kind of came out of the blue. I always knew you as this very... I thought of you as an intelligent and incredibly talented musician that I never thought would touch anything physical or violent in your life. I mean, I was in high school, and I remember you talking about going to the gym and doing that. I was like, what is this guy do? This guy's never going to do anything physical. He's a intellectual musician type.
Yeah.
It's like Lockie. I could never imagine Lockie doing anything physical
when I first told him I was doing jiu-jitsu, he was like,
yeah, and you get those looks.
Yeah.
You get those looks because people that are in your very high-end musical space, they're very brain and feeling and all that kind of orientation, and
I also want to get that. I want to get to it later, but
yeah,
my introduction to jiu-jitsu started from. Have you seen the movie Ip Man?
Yeah.
Right, so I watched all three of those.
Bloodsport.
I haven't seen the fourth one because I heard it wasn't that great, but the first three Ip Man.
Yep.
I watched all of that.
Yep.
And me and my friends at work were like, well, obviously, look how cool this looks. We're definitely going to go kung fu.
Right.
And then, to make a long story short, I watched a video of a kung fu master fighting I think he was like a Muay Thai guy.
Yep. Okay. I did Muay Thai for a little bit too.
Yeah. And the Muay Thai guy just destroyed him. It wasn't even like competitive.
It's not good.
It wasn't competitive at all.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, okay, well, Kung Fu looks cool in the movies, but I don't know if I want to do that if it's not going to be necessarily useful to me in like a self-defense scenario.
Okay. So right there, you were thinking about doing something that you wanted just in case you were going to be in a self-defense scenario.
Well, there's the context to that as well. So a few... I don't even know how long ago. I would say maybe about a year ago.
Yeah.
We were just chilling at home. Pretty safe area around here.
Yeah.
Gate was unlocked. Nobody really comes through the gate. And the door was open so the dog could come in and out.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And I hear my sister come up and she just, I hear her come up. It's all good.
Yeah.
And I hear her come down. Then I hear somebody say hi at the front door. And I just assumed it was one of, my sister's friends.
Yeah.
All good. And then she just yelled out Sid. And just the way she yelled it out, I was just leapt up from my bed. And I go to the front door. And there's this, like, absolute tweaker, mate. He's, like, sweating, face sunken in. Like,
Okay.
drug addict, bro. Yeah.
At your front door?
Yeah, at my front door.
Oh, that's not good.
And, my dog, Buddy, bless his heart.
I love Buddy.
Full of kindness.
Shout out to Buddy.
Terrible guard dog.
He's a lad.
Horrendous guard dog. Yeah, horrendous guard dog. He was sitting next to this guy who was just patting his head. Never barked. Never let us know that there was somebody coming in. And so this guy is just like waiting outside of our front door.
What did he want?
Well, no, I didn't ask. I was like,
just there?
Yeah. And I was like,
oh, that's interesting.
What are you doing here? I was like, yelled at him. I was like, get out. So I pushed him, and I pushed him out to the gate, kicked him out. I was like, I'm going to call the police. He was like, don't call the cops. Never call the cops. Call mum and dad. They came home. And, luckily, I think he just got the wrong, I think he was like looking for some other place.
Might have just been off his face.
Yeah, absolutely. He was gone. He was like sweating, eyes, dinner plates, mate. And when mum and dad came home, I was like thinking to myself, what if something had happened? This is so lucky this time around. This guy was just, probably lost, definitely high, pretty like timid guy. But if he wanted to, do something to me, I wouldn't have been able to protect myself, let alone my sisters.
You
So
were being a gardener in a war.
There we go. That's it. And so I was like, now I need to find something to make sure that if something does go down, at least I might not win, but I won't go down without some type of kind of resistance. You know what I mean?
You had a very scary situation, which made you you probably never thought about violence before.
I don't think I've ever told you that story.
No, you haven't. And you probably never thought about potential violence before that scenario. And so you kind of got triggered in a sense of thinking, oh, okay, well, if something happens, I don't really know what to do. Okay. So we're back at you're back at your first day at jiu-jitsu.
Now we're back at Shaolin and Shaolin Dojo, and
your first day.
Yeah, so I make a long story short, I found jiu-jitsu. I was originally wanting to do the MMA thing because obviously I saw the UFC and I was like,
concussions?
Oh, that's what I mean. But when we started doing kickboxing, you punched me in the head one time. I was like, not for me.
I've had 9 concussions between judo and I did a little bit of Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And it's a great sport for self-defense because it's quite naturally violent. It engages, for anybody that doesn't know, it engages not just the fists or the feet for kicking. It involves, it's called the 8 weapons. You've got your 2 fists, your 2 elbows, your 2 knees, and then your 2 feet. And then there's Letway, which is even more violent than Muay Thai.
Yeah, they do headbutts and stuff in Letway. I've seen videos of that.
I tell you what, if I was single and didn't have anybody that I needed to be around for, I'd probably study Letway. It speaks right into the dark parts of my personality.
Yeah.
Incredibly violent. But I think I've had about 4 concussions from judo and probably 5 concussions from Muay Thai, getting knocked out and thrown on my head as a 14-year-old. Because I was a big 14-year-old, and so they put me in the junior adults class with the 20 to 45s. And so I used to get thrown around a lot, thrown on my head.
Yeah.
And was not nice. So you didn't want to do the MMA?
No, I originally came in to do the MMA.
Oh, that's right. You did, didn't you?
Yeah, and then
you got smacked.
No, that was me. That was the other guy, remember?
No.
you remember?
No.
Because I came in, I wasn't expecting anything. They were like, we're just doing jiu-jitsu. So I came in, did the no gi. Then you're like, stay, put on a gi. So Andy gave me one of his gis. So I put that on, did the double session.
You did do the double session.
I don't know how I managed to do it. You know what I think it was? I think that I just let people tap me.
Yeah, that's a good idea for your first class.
So I was like, I just take
That's a
my
good
back,
idea for the
tap
first
me.
year.
Yeah.
I still do it now.
You don't.
I just let people tap me. I let Sid tap me all
You
the time.
let me, and I get so gassed as well. And then I'm in the car on the way home. It's like, oh, yeah, no, James definitely let me do that.
You'll get there one day if I take 6 years off. You'll get there.
Yeah, one day. There is one, I did get you with one triangle one time that felt about 35% legit.
We'll just leave that. I'll let Sid have that one.
Where were we in the...
You came in for the double session.
I came in for the double session, and then I saw you. I was like, well, if I don't show up for the next one, James is definitely going to message me. And to be honest, if I didn't have you there, I probably wouldn't have kept showing up.
Yeah, you said that about 6 months in.
Yeah.
Do you know what it was for me is I've been doing it for full-time about 3 years. And what I very quickly noticed is that a lot of people would come in and try it and they'd get incredibly frustrated.
Got something here for that.
Yeah.
Right, I'll read out what I've written in my notes. A lot of people don't give up on jiu-jitsu after being smashed their first time. I reckon after they have rolled a few times, maybe 5-6 months, and they manage to go in one session and have a bad roll, get tapped out by somebody that's come in and done it for a couple months, that's the point where they're like, what's the point? I don't want to do this anymore.
Okay, so let's clarify this. So you've been doing... Let's relate this to something a bit more broad. Say you've been playing an instrument for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
You're moderately okay at the instrument, right? You play a few chords, you can smack a few rhythms on the drum kit, right? And then this other kid comes in,
Prodigy,
who's been doing it, well, not even necessarily a prodigy, just someone who's been doing it for 2 months, right? But they've come every day. You've come twice a week for 6 months, right? And so this kid's naturally put in more hours than you in 2 months than you have in 6. And you think, oh, that won't matter. I've been here 4 months longer than him.
Yeah.
And so you have a little internal music competition, little music spar off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this kid absolutely obliterates you on the drum kit.
Yeah.
And you think, I've been doing this for 3 times longer than this kid. And he just absolutely destroyed me. I must really be bad at playing the drum kit. I'm just going to stop coming to music practice. And the thing with jiu-jitsu is it's a lot more impactful than, say, playing a musical instrument would be, because there's not much else out there that kind of puts the same absolutely destroying of your ego situations and compress into an hour.
The thing with jiu-jitsu is that the difference between music and jiu-jitsu in a way is, music for the most part is just purely subjective. It's based on the listener, but with jiu-jitsu, it's if you get choked out, you get choked out. That's it.
Yeah.
If you play something for an audience, they will either like it or not, and that's purely based on
their opinions of the music.
Their opinions of what they wanted on the day.
You might have half the audience that loves it, half the audience that hates it.
Absolutely.
So who's right?
But if you get your back taken and you get choked out, and that you've been doing it for 4 months, and this guy's only come in one more day than you a week, and he's been doing it for 2 months, and he's all happy. You're not that happy about it, mate. No,
you're not happy.
Of course, you're not happy.
It's incredibly demoralizing as an activity. It's very weird that it's highly addicting.
Yeah.
And I think it's highly addicting because you have to, there's a point, and Andy's described this to me before, there's a point about 6 to 8 months in, if you're doing it quite regularly, if you're doing it, say, 3 times a week, you get about 6 to 8 months in, and you kind of get this period where you might have your first stripe on your white belt. You might think, okay, I'm not a complete beginner now. I've got a little bit of nous in some areas. I got an okay triangle, right? But then you can't progress to that next kind of stage for probably another 6 months.
Mm.
So you don't really get to a point where you feel okay at it for about a year. That's a long time.
Mm.
That's a long time to do one activity, especially something that can be very painful, can be very crushing of the soul. There's been many training sessions in the last 3 years where I've got back in the car after a session and gone,
No music on the way home.
no
music on the way home.
You're sore.
Yep.
You might have ripped up fingernails.
Yep.
You might have bloody nose. Your head is sore.
Mm-hmm.
You're sweaty and disgusting. And you think, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? This just hurts. It just hurts. And so you need to be able to push through that stage. And I don't know how relatable that is to other things, because I don't think there's much else that kind of hits you so hard for a long time.
Mm.
It's not like it hits you real suddenly for a month and then you really kind of progress in a linear linear way. It's hard for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
And then it gets slightly easier.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might get your blue belt. And then you realize
how much you don't know.
I haven't even scratched 1%.
Well, you've seen. I assume you've seen the graph. I might put it in the edit here.
Yeah.
But there's a graph of like, as a white belt, your confidence in jiu-jitsu on your way to the blue belt is pretty linear, and then as soon as you reach the blue belt, it goes down. On your purple belt, it kind of goes up as you reach your brown belt, and then back down.
Yeah, and the problem with the blue belt, and I'm not really in favor of belts. I don't really care.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
I don't
multiple times.
I wouldn't care if Andy gives me a pink belt and says this is the only belt you're going to get for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. Because I know the belt doesn't signify how good I am. It kind of indicates to Andy how good I am compared to when I started. But like, I've tapped purple belts. I've been tapped by white belts. I'm a blue belt. So not you, don't lie. You've never tapped me. But it's a weird system, and I think people put a lot of emphasis and importance on getting that milestone, and then you get it, and you're like, oh, done. I got my blue belt. Cool, I'm not an amateur anymore. And then they kind of just drift off. Because to have to go through that whole... And you might have your blue belt for 5 years. It takes about 10 years to get your average black belt. 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
So you might have that blue belt for way longer than you ever had your white belt. And so you think to yourself, God, do I really want to wait again another very, very long period of time, very, very long period of progression to get my next belt? And often people don't. They change clubs, or they do a different sport, or they move on and they just stop completely. And I loved something I saw, getting a black belt in jiu-jitsu is not about who's the best. It's about who's left.
Yeah.
Right? Who's left after everyone leaves. Because those who are left and just stick at it, you will eventually get your black belt.
Yeah.
Because over time you will get better, but it's, and how many stripe white belt are you?
1.
You actually 1 stripe?
Yeah. You missed the day I got the stripe, by the way, guys.
Didn't you get a second one?
I did not. No, because
I feel like you have a second one.
I don't. No.
You should have a second one, Andy.
He's by the way, I don't know if Andy's watching this, but Ryan followed me on Instagram. So Ryan, tell your dad.
Ryan's a purple belt. I've tapped Ryan, but he's tapped me many times. So it just shows you the belts don't really mean anything.
Yeah, there's definitely levels to it, like regardless of the belts. And you've explained this to me, many, many times. Just don't worry about it. Don't worry about the stripe. It's a good stepping stone, but it doesn't necessarily show. I'll phrase this another way, actually. What you said to me, I can't remember when, but it's still stuck in my mind. The Sid that I am now would have whooped first class Sid's ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what the belts are.
Yeah.
And this is why people get angry and leave, because I'm a blue belt, so I shouldn't get tapped by white belts. There's a reason mine's blue, not white, but then occasionally I do. And the thing is the belts are a sign of progression, if you want to phrase it that way, comparison to how you are now versus how you were when you started. Because I got my blue belt in 2 years. That's pretty clean timing. Usually takes 2 to 4 years, right? I was pretty consistent. I had previous martial art history, so I kind of had the biomechanics behind it. I knew my body quite well, how it moves, how it fits. And so 2 years flat, I got it. You know, if I sticked at this, I'd probably have my purple belt in another 4 years. But there might be someone who gets their black belt in 3 years. There might be someone where it takes 30 years for them to get their black belt. It might take them 10 years to get the blue belt because they haven't progressed that far from where they were when they started. And you only run into trouble when you compare yourself to other belt colors. Like, I'm bigger than a lot of the other blue belts there, bar 3 or 4 people. So if I just went and picked on a smaller blue belt and just sat on them, put my whole weight on their chest and just put my elbow in their esophagus, it's like they're gonna tap. But that doesn't make me a better blue belt than them, because the progression that they've made from where they start, they might almost be at their purple belt in their progression level. And if they get their purple belt and then I tap them, does that suddenly mean that they don't deserve a purple belt? No.
Yeah.
It means that they have reached a level of progression from their day one where they now deserve
They're a
that
purple belt for them.
Well, it's when you get a blue belt, it's not mine, is it? It's
yeah,
yours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's a very personal marker. And, you know, they don't have them in wrestling, but you can tell how far you come along in that space if you don't use it. But a belt system is essentially just a progression mechanism for how you were compared to when you started. And you would whip your day one, Sid. Yeah.
I guess if you do it for long enough, you would. And you know, everyone cares, I think, when they first join. And you know, we've just recently talked about it.
Because they've got big egos.
Yeah, and then
have you destroyed your ego yet?
Yeah, dude.
Have you?
I think
because you still get pissed off when I whoop you.
Yeah, but I don't get pissed off because I got whooped. I get pissed off because I knew I could have done something, and I didn't do it. And that's
okay. So you're getting close.
Yeah,
I've had full ego.
Yeah,
death.
but I know that you're gonna whip me. You've never gone, well, maybe a couple times, unless apart from that one time I legit tapped you. That no, but I know you're gonna whip me, and it's the same thing. Andy's told this to me as well. He's like, "You're never gonna beat me."
Yeah.
I might let you tap me.
Yeah.
But you're never gonna beat me.
Yeah.
So you have to come in.
Is it important for you to beat people?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's where the
ego
comes in.
You haven't achieved ego death.
What do you mean? I would say
you haven't achieved ego death.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
because you care about it.
That's yeah, absolutely.
So a good indicator is like when you come to class, what do you want to achieve? That's a question to you right now.
Well, I guess it depends on the class. I think now, I guess when I go to class,
I say
to myself, but now that when I go to class, I say to myself, you know, today, let's work on just passing guard. Okay. Or just recently, you know, we've been working on guard retention and scrambling and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, and when I successfully do that, it doesn't stress me out as much if I tap someone or somebody taps me, as long as I've, you know, retained guard.
Yep.
And that kind of thing for a certain period of time. If I'm happy with myself, then I'm happy with myself. And if I'm not, it's usually because I'm just mad that I could have done something here, and I know I should have done it, and I didn't do it. Or I'm mad at myself because I should have moved and I could have moved, and if I pushed myself a little bit more, I really could have moved, but I was just too lazy and let the guy take my back, and I just got tapped out just because I didn't want to move.
Why are you not okay with that? Because what if you're really tired one day? Why are you not okay with absolutely being destroyed?
Yeah, do you not think that if you have that bit to give, then you should give it?
Yeah, but if you don't, why does it matter?
Yeah, I guess.
Because all your ego wants to do is achieve.
Mm.
Doesn't like failure.
Yeah.
It's there to protect you. Your ego is what gets you up in the morning at 5 a.m. to go and do an absolute thirsty chest session like I did this morning. Right?
Yeah.
Because, and you can't let it completely go, otherwise you just won't achieve anything in life. But I think in the space of a jiu-jitsu mat, you can't have it. Because what if I'm really tired one day, but I really want to go to training? So I go to training, and I get obliterated by all the female white belts. And we've got some tough female white belts out there, but at the end of the day, I've probably got between 40 and 50 kgs on all of them. So in theory, if I push myself, they should never tap me.
Yeah.
Just on a size thing, right? But there's been times when I go in there, I'm exhausted, but I just want to go train. And before, when I was really egotistical about the whole thing and I just want to smash people all day, if I got tapped out by a girl, I'd be fuming.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Now I go in there, if I'm real tired, I might just sit here like this, and I might just defend, and I'll get tapped by a 50 kg white belt girl. I'll see how I get tapped.
Yeah.
I'll get my arm snapped, and I don't care. Because, okay, here's another scenario. If you went in and you weren't thinking about wanting to work on anything, you're just going for a roll, like tomorrow night we have open mat, right, where you can just do whatever you want, and you got tapped. You got tapped the entire session. You didn't tap anybody, and you got destroyed by everybody that you rolled with, from me to someone very small. How would that make you feel? Would you be angry, or would you be okay with it?
I would say, not including the lockdowns, by the way, but 6 months not including the lockdowns ago, I would have been furious, and that's the only thing. That was my only merit of success, was how many people I tapped that session.
Yes.
But now when I go in, especially for the open mats, with the usually kind of the higher level guys are coming into the open mats, for the most part, I'm not really thinking about that. Now I'm thinking about specific things that I want to achieve. And if I do get something, like, forget about the submission. If I sweep you, if I, get out of your guard, if I pass somebody's guard, all of these, I guess, building blocks to the submission, these are things I'm thinking about now, rather than just kind of like points on the board of how many, my jiu-jitsu body count, I guess.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And for sure, I think everybody, when they first come in, like, thinks about that.
Yeah.
For me, on my first session, it wasn't like that at all, because I knew I was going to get smashed. But 6 months down the line, I was like,
You were wanting to tap people.
I was like, yeah, I've been here like long enough. I can tap people now. And if I wasn't doing that, I was like, well, I'm crap at this, so why am I even here? But now I'm just like, well, it's not about that. And I figured that out when I left for a bit. I don't think you know this, but I messaged Andy. I was like, I don't know if I'm actually like keen to do this that much anymore.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so I left for about I think it was about 2.5 weeks. And I was like,
really
my body was like,
tomorrow. I didn't even know that.
and my body was like getting antsy.
Really?
Yeah. So all I was doing was going to the gym. And for people that are listening that haven't done jiu-jitsu, if you've done it for like a while, you just, I don't know what it is, but you just fall in love with it. And this is coming from somebody that's not, I wouldn't call myself like a fighting person.
It's very addictive.
For sure. And then I was just like going to the gym, and I was like, just not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. And
I know that exact feeling.
Yeah. And I told one of my friends that, and she said, jiu-jitsu was like, when you were talking about it, you just loved it. So why don't you just go back? Forget about all of the kind of just like reasons why, anyone can justify why not to do jiu-jitsu. You get smashed up, you feel terrible after a decent amount of the sessions.
There's not a lot of good reasons to do it.
Yeah, for sure. But when you do it for long enough, it was like, I just don't know. It was just feeling like so antsy.
Did you feel like you needed it?
Yeah, yes.
Like a drug?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 It was withdrawals. That's absolutely what I was trying. And also, I have to come back, and I got smashed a few times, and Andy said something. I had a one-on-one with Andy one time because nobody showed up to one of the classes.
That's dangerous.
And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
And it was perfect. He was like, just get your body moving again. If you start going hard, you're just gonna shock your body, and it's not your body's not going to want to come back.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because you're gonna be hurt.
Yeah.
You're gonna be in pain.
For sure.
You're gonna be mentally destroyed.
And he was like, even if you show up, 30 minutes just for like a roll and then just leave, that's fine. Yep. You just do what's best for you. And after that, bar the lockdowns, obviously, which inhibits a lot of people's progress.
Thanks, Jacinda.
And we're back.
Yeah, the lockdowns were extremely hard for me in a jiu-jitsu context because
you don't realize how much you need jiu-jitsu for your mental health.
Well, I go to a therapist, right?
Yeah.
I have a therapist that I video chat several times a week. Maybe if it's a good week, it's only once or twice, but I do talk to this therapist, and if I don't, then I have some dark days, you could say.
Yeah.
But if I don't do that and also don't do jiu-jitsu, it's even worse. And I really do think that there's something about going and getting violently obliterated with your friends in a martial arts context and really sometimes hurting each other. There's a lot of therapy in that. And there's a lot of camaraderie in, trying out all these things with your friends and making that physical connection. I guess you might find something similar to that in a rugby game where you're smashing into each other and you're all mates afterwards and it's fine. But it's quite a unique experience of being hammered down.
Yeah. Or pinned down. Once you feel that black belt side control pressure for the first time, it's not
pleasant.
It's really not.
It's really sore and it's you feel like you cannot breathe and you don't want to tap too early because then you get shamed.
Oh yeah, once people are forgiving the first few times you tap on Neon Belly, but after you've been there a while and you tap, people are like, well, we're still rolling.
Yeah.
Hey James.
I do that. Instead, I'll if people don't know what Neon Belly is I might grab the back of Sid's neck or the back of his collar on his gi, and I might grab his belt or I might put my hand on his hip. And I'll drive my right or left knee right into the top of his stomach. And, if you've ever had someone put their knee in the middle of your abdomen, it's really not a pleasant experience. But
not only pushing their knee into your stomach, but pulling every other bit of your body into their knee
especially if you've got a gi on.
Yep.
Especially if you've got a gi.
Yep.
But it's a test of resilience because at the end of the day, you're not going to get injured from doing that. You might get a little bit of bruising on your stomach, but you're not going to get injured.
Nope. And what do you say to me every time? If you don't move, you'll die.
Yeah. You have to move.
You have to move. And so how many times have I tapped in Neon Belly now? Never, mate.
Yeah, I'm going to put you in one tomorrow night.
Yeah, I know you will. I knew you were going to say that,
Got my gear in the car. But it's a good test of resilience. And I think it's, you might start a new hobby and then you get to a point where you don't really want to do it anymore. And you keep coming to this resilience check. It might be a part of a song that you're trying to learn that you really can't get those two bars to connect, and you can either choose to stop learning the song, stop doing the martial art, or you can learn to get through that little hitch. But once you get on the other side of that thing, once you learn to shrimp out, tuck your knees and get back into a half guard from the Neon Belly, you realize, okay, if I'm in this situation, I know how to get out of it. If I get to this part of the music, I know how to flow through it.
Absolutely. And to be honest, with all of that stuff, and particularly with we'll use the Neon Belly example, how to get out of a Neon Belly. You move towards the person, use your arms to maybe move the knee and move yourself away, and then switch your hips, get into or try and get into guard, right?
Yeah.
If you don't, you know what to do in your brain. But maybe there's one little bit of the technique that you need to tweak. And now you're getting frustrated. Why? I know exactly what to do in my brain. I feel like I'm doing the movement. So, what's going on?
You're scared.
And Andy comes around, says, no, I'll move your knee a little bit higher and, go into the hip a little bit more. And now, now it's working for you a few more times. It's the same thing with, learning an aria. There's a bit of the music that you're not getting, and all you needed to do is, compress the consonant a little bit more, modify the vowel, and now you got it.
Yeah. But what would happen if you just didn't work on that little bit of the aria?
Oh, if you never wanted to be put on knee and belly ever again, yeah, you would never learn that skill.
But then, again, relating this back to the first quote, if you want to bring it back, if you go through life and you only do things until it gets up to the hard part, well, you're never going to be singing an aria anywhere apart from your bedroom.
Absolutely.
If you don't want to become a warrior in a garden, if you want to stay the gardener your whole life, that's fine. But just don't expect that if everything goes wrong all of a sudden, that you're going to be able to handle it. Because I think in the act of bringing that worst outcome into your life voluntarily is the part that makes it okay. The part that makes it bearable. Because if you just leave it out and you decide, okay, I don't want to deal with that, I don't want to engage in that hard stuff, I'm just going to wait and hope it never comes around the corner, and it will. There will always be something very, very hard eventually that happens in your life. And if you're not prepared for it, then if you haven't done hard things in your life, if you haven't put yourself voluntarily into very hard situations, you're going to come to that hard part. It might be anything. And you're going to be absolutely shut down because you've never encountered adversity anywhere in your life. And I'd much rather be a warrior, someone who has encountered a lot of voluntary adversity, living in a safe space of the modern world, where I know if I see something happening, I can just dial 911 and there will be people with guns and fast cars at the scene in 15 minutes. Sure. I'd rather have that and be okay with that situation than be timid and live my life not worrying about anything, never voluntarily put myself through anything hard because I don't really want to do it, as opposed to the other side where you're prepared. Because if you're not prepared for something to go wrong, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And you want to be on the right side of that when equation.
Yeah.
Because you can't run away forever.
Mm.
And eventually it's going to hit you. It's going to hit you hard. And if you've experienced a lot of jiu-jitsu and you build up a resilience from a sport like that, when life gives you a knee on belly, you're going to be okay with it. Because you've experienced hard stuff voluntarily.
Yeah, and just on that, there's so much of things that you learn in jiu-jitsu that, maybe in the context have just been about, the physics of jiu-jitsu at that time. But there's been plenty of stuff that, Andy said that, to a certain point, I just kind of relate it to my own life now. Like, I've got one thing here.
Yeah. Is this an Andy quote?
Yeah. Again, sorry, Andy, I might have said this. It's been a while since you've... but, it's close enough. If you can't bench press a person off you, then move yourself.
Oh, that sounds quite good. So how do you interpret that?
Well,
we're talking about side control.
Yes.
So how much do you weigh?
91.
Jeez.
Yeah. 97
How much is that?
Pre-lockdown. Let's go.
So you've lost 6 kgs?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, I'm 99, right? I'm 100 if I drink a glass of water. So I've got a little bit of weight on you, right? And so I can often find myself holding you down and you not being able to move.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to be able to bench press me off.
Nope.
But you might be able to move yourself. So kind of dig into that a little bit. How does that relate to another life situation where you might not be able to bench press the bad times right off you, but you might be able to move yourself around it?
Well, it's with everything, like in the jiu-jitsu context, if you just try and, even if you can, let's say, push the person off of you, you're just going to get exhausted.
Yeah.
You're exerting all of this energy outwards. Even in life, you have a hard thing. A lot of the times, don't try and force yourself to maybe fix a situation. If you can't fix a situation, then maneuver around it. And that, I fear what people might hear from that is avoid it. No. If you can find a smarter way around the situation than just forcing yourself through it, it's going to be more beneficial for you and your mentality, because you're not going to feel exhausted. And I'm not saying this like I know how to do it perfectly outside of jiu-jitsu. I definitely don't know how to do it perfectly in jiu-jitsu, and outside of jiu-jitsu, we're still learning. But I think that's definitely one thing that's been said in a jiu-jitsu context that I take outside of that in my life. If you can't move something that you're struggling to push off, all good, just move around it. Because the chances are you're probably not going to find the tools to push that thing off you in the next kind of last 2 minutes of the roll. So
yeah, and you also kind of have to assess where you want to put your energy. So you might have a problem with a friend, right? You might have been really good friends, but you're having a disagreement this week. So are you going to go full bore and try to bench press the friend off by coming in with full aggression and just trying to argue with him and solve your problems in a very aggressive and confrontational way? Well, that might work with one situation, but it might not work with this one. So you might have to sidestep, say, hey, look, I'm just going to go spend a little bit of time with myself. I'm going to need to sort some things out, and I'll come back when I'm not so angry at you, right? And that's kind of that moving yourself out of the situation. But if you try to...
If you're just trying to argue
if you're
with
trying
the
to
friend
hit
and
everything on head on all the time, you're just going to end up exhausted and injured. It's not always the situation where it requires you to go full bore all the time, because God forbid you might injure yourself or your relationship with someone if you just always confrontational, always trying to get rid of your problems in a very aggressive way. You might have to move around, reassess, come back and look at the situation from a third person perspective and go, oh, actually, I was wrong there, they were wrong here, let's reassess and come at it at a different angle, instead of going, I'm right, you're wrong, we're not going to talk about this, and if we do talk, we're just going to fight about it.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to get achieved there apart from both of you being upset that you're now yelling at each other, trying to solve something that can't be solved through yelling at each other? You got to move around things. Because if you're not flexible and adaptable with things like that in life, so you get an argument with your girlfriend, and what are you going to do, just yell at each other for 3 hours?
Yeah.
No, you have to move around it. You have to reassess, and you have to find a way to go, okay, well, this is worth talking about. Let's talk about it and sort it out. Let's not just yell at each other, because that doesn't solve anything.
It's that kind of thing of working smarter and not harder in all contexts.
Yeah.
And I'm a massive fan of, maybe not working hard.
Sid likes to work very smart.
Yeah, smart. That's
Sid's
the
not
way
a
I phrase it.
sweater at heart.
Absolutely. Now, there's another thing that we talked about for a bit in the car waiting for training, and I think it's very important. And
is it a list of moves I'm going to destroy you with in the training session when we're sitting
yeah, and then I'll catch you with a triangle again. The legit tap.
So funny with your little triangle, aren't you? I'll have everybody know Sid never actually properly tapped me. I might have been just in a very nice mood. Let Sid have this one.
Yeah, look, I'll take it. I'll always take it. I need one.
You need one. I might give you one tomorrow night if you're nice.
Yeah. So this one here, we're talking about in the car on the way to training, and the importance of doing something physical.
Yeah.
And I like to use the word like primitive.
Ooh.
Because when I'm around particularly at the university, there's a lot of female energy. No, well, yeah, it's we love all of them. It's all great. There's a lot of female energy around me. Yep. Which in a way is helpful. However, if that's around you all the time, you're you end up yearning something. And for me, jiu-jitsu ended up being that thing.
The opposite of that kind of, does it feel like a very masculine activity for you?
Yeah.
Right. So explore that a little bit. Why does it feel very masculine compared to you being at university?
Well, there's a whole lot of reasons why I like coming to jiu-jitsu, as opposed to, or maybe not as opposed to going to university, but in kind of relation to going to university.
Yeah, when you directly compare the two.
Yeah, so in terms of the kind of like the energy, there's just something. I don't know how to explain it, man. In a smart way, like in kind of the easiest way I can explain it. There's just something so like great about grabbing somebody's gi and just pulling them towards you and taking them down.
Let's just explain what a gi is for context purposes.
They're jiu-jitsu pajamas.
Maybe you can edit a picture in of a gi, but a gi, if you've ever seen any karate movie, it's the white outfit, the uniform that they wear. The jiu-jitsu ones are a bit different to the karate ones. They kind of go all the way down your wrist. They don't stop at a mid-forearm, and they're quite thick because they're used for grabbing. Think of it like a suit jacket.
Yeah,
it's that kind of style.
The pants as well.
It connects together with a belt, and it's used for. I like to use them as hooks, basically, to be able to grip onto things. So you find it. So when you say you're at university and you feel a lot of, it's a very feminine energy. What do you mean by that? Does it feel?
There's a lot of females around me.
Right. So do you think that's a product of you being in a degree which has a lot of females in it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I don't regret doing. There's no regret here.
Yeah.
I'm doing music. That's my thing. However, you have to find a way to bring in. If you have a masculine energy, you need to find a way to bring that into your life if it's not in there otherwise. And I never
100% agree.
I never used to think like this until I kind of looked objectively at my situation. I was like, actually, this is also why jiu-jitsu is important to me. Besides the whole self-defense thing, this is what I need in my life.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I feel like it's more, and maybe because you go gym as well. For some reason, I feel like it's more with jiu-jitsu, and I've never figured out why.
Well, my theory on it is the ratio of women to men in a university context is probably these days almost 2 to 1. Right? There's more girls that go to university than men, and so naturally you'll have a bit more of a female energy around that kind of place. But the ratio of men to women in jiu-jitsu is probably like 9 to 1. I think there's like 3 or 4 girls that I know that come to class, and there's 30 or 40 guys. And, you might find that same masculine energy in a rugby club or maybe a wrestling room or a boxing gym. But I think it's necessary for young men to have that.
I think it's grossly underrated.
It's not very common in the modern world.
No.
Because it's frowned upon. It's not good to be extremely masculine in the modern era.
Yeah.
Because people think masculine and they think violent.
And now we come back straight to the thing, And I want to quote Jordan Peterson on this as well. He said, it's necessary to be a monster.
Yeah, I love that.
But it's also necessary to know how to control it.
Yeah.
And that's what doing things like martial arts, not specifically jiu-jitsu, we do jiu-jitsu, but all these martial arts will teach you how to do that.
Well, you're not useful as a little lamb.
No. You want to just have that closer to your face, bro.
Bring it a fist right
There
face.
you go.
That's going to be a thumbnail. Well, the thing is that, we talked earlier about only being able to be the little lamb if you have the capacity of the lion, right? Which is very true. You can't be a soft and caring person in a proper manner if you don't know what the capacity of violence is, because then how do you compare it to anything? If you've only known soft your whole life, then you how do you measure whether you're being too soft or not?
Mm.
Because if you don't know what the other end of it looks like, how do you know how far to go or how far to pull back?
Absolutely.
And I think if you're a young male and you're constantly surrounded by girls and you have a very female energy in your everyday life, and you've never, got rough with your mates, you've never had that energy because it's very easy to avoid in the modern world. Well,
there has to be balance.
There has to be balance.
Yeah.
And I think
there definitely has to be
girls
a
lot
balance.
of time, I think a lot of girls get that necessary female energy from their friends, but men aren't very good at communicating it. Men
No.
can't necessarily sit down and have an emotional chat about how they're feeling and get that masculine energy feeling from their friends. They often need to go do something physical. So a lot of guys go to the gym together. They go and lift weights together. They might go do a martial art together. They might go do a sport together. But I think girls have a unique, much better way of getting that emotional energy out as opposed to men.
Yeah, I think it's even with the kind of group of girls at the university, there's a sense of sisterhood there.
Yeah.
And that's really, really special. However, simply because I'm a guy, I don't necessarily fit into that. Not necessarily because I want to.
Yeah.
I'm not yearning for this.
You just don't naturally click into it.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm totally all good with that.
Yeah.
But that means that there's a part of my life where I'm missing that camaraderie with,
the boys.
The boys. And I find that with jiu-jitsu. And I don't necessarily like talking about my feelings all the time.
See, there you go. You're acting out what I just said.
Yeah, exactly.
Men don't like talking about their feelings.
Just need to take someone down.
Yeah, we're really not very good at expressing emotional. We're not very good at using our emotional outlets through talking. It doesn't make a lot of sense to us. And that might sound like we're a bunch of barbarians and it's like, just go and talk about your feelings. But men aren't comfortable with it because it shows a weakness. And men aren't meant to be weak. Because
I think there are levels to it, though. I think there are tools you can use to get better at it, and I'm sure, like you said, you go to therapy.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've learnt tools to help you with that. And when I do talk about things like that, I'm usually quite good. I just don't. When it comes to certain things, I don't want to talk about them. I just want to go roll. Yeah, and that's the distinction that I make.
You want to get that negative energy out in a physical manner.
Absolutely.
As opposed to a passively talking manner, which I think is a great way to describe it, actually. I quite like how I just said that, but that sounds really arrogant. Yeah, I just think that doing something physical with your close friends is a much more effective way for men to dispel negative emotional energy than in comparison to females. I just don't think we have the same capacity to pour it out through conversation.
No. I mean, you see it all the time. Like, when in high school, when two guys had a disagreement, when they tried to talk it out and it didn't work, they would fight, and then after the fight, everyone's all good.
It's weird.
It's super weird.
Why can't we just talk it out? Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I honestly, if I could tell you, I would.
Put it this way. If you and I had a disagreement, and we could choose to sit down and argue about it, or we could have a roll, which would you rather do? Which do you think would expel that negative energy better? The roll, right. It's weird, eh?
Super weird.
It's a super big separation from, I think, a lot
because I think a lot of the, not necessarily aggressive energy, but this negative energy that may translate into something aggressive ends up, we end up quelling it through the roll. And then by the end of it, we've calmed down because all of this aggressive energy that's built up inside of us, all this negativity has now been dispelled.
Yep.
We've sweat it out. Yep. We've had the roll.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily about who won the roll.
It's just about doing it.
It's just about doing it.
Yeah.
Because, if we had a disagreement and we really, had... we've never really had a proper disagreement. We disagree about stuff all the time, but never to that capacity about it. Yeah. But I know if we have a roll, 99.9% of the time, unless it's like a freak triangle that you've given me, you're going to beat me.
Right.
So it's not about going into the roll to beat you or It's not about becoming the
It's just about sorting things out.
Absolutely. And we just have to...
Sorting things out.
And I want to go on record and saying, not necessarily all guys may find this. I just think if you have the tool in the toolbox, it's a very useful one, particularly because I'm not... You said it perfectly. I'm not like a fighting guy. I like going to the gym. I like going to jiu-jitsu, but it's not my... It doesn't come as naturally to me as it does for somebody else. But now I have the tool in my toolbox and I love to use it.
Yeah, I think it might be a bit natural in terms of a tendency to go towards something like a martial art as opposed to a sport. It's so funny because my father didn't want me to play rugby because he was very concerned about me breaking my neck because I was tall when I would have started playing rugby, you could say, and he was afraid I was going to be a lock. Is that the guy that... I don't know anything about rugby.
I honestly have no idea anything.
Okay, well, the tall guy in the middle of the scrum that kind of, locks it together.
Cricket,
please
bro.
correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know anything.
You're talking to the wrong
rugby.
guy about rugby, bro.
And so he was afraid that I was going to get my neck broken in some fashion, right? And so he put me into judo, which I don't really know how that translates because I used to get concussions. But I was in it from an early age. But I think someone like you who... I mean, have you done any other martial arts before jiu-jitsu?
No.
Right, but I think that tendency to be able to tap into the other side of your personality that may be a little bit more violent, I think it can be trained a little bit. And I think it's always kind of there in everybody, male or female, from whatever walk of life you come.
Absolutely.
But I think naturally maybe it's just because they might have done it as a kid like I did. Maybe it's just a bit more ingrained in people than other people, but I really think that it's there in everybody, and especially men that have trouble voicing their emotions, they can really benefit from doing something like a physical martial art or a really physical sport. I don't know if table tennis is something to get your emotions out with. I don't know how that could happen if you really want to hit the ball really hard.
Well, I guess it all comes down to also like a focus thing as well.
Yeah. You need a strong output.
Yeah.
If you don't have a strong output, you're not going to get that release. Yeah, because therapy doesn't do a lot for me. It kind of takes the edge off. But I need that physical outlet.
You need the role.
I could probably, if I couldn't do jiu-jitsu anymore, I could probably transition it into something like a boxing sport, or maybe just going really hard in the gym. Maybe taking up like a competitive powerlifting sport.
Honestly, now that I've done jiu-jitsu for a certain amount of time, I'd say like a decent amount of time, I can only use the gym now as a tool for the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, you integrate it.
Yeah, and
you integrate
I only know this now since I left jiu-jitsu for that little stint.
Yeah.
I need the gym as an extension of jiu-jitsu, but I need the jiu-jitsu to be there. Yeah, and I'm totally happy not going to the gym.
But you're not happy not doing jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely.
Because what you find is when you start going to the gym while doing jiu-jitsu is you find out that you're not actually going to the gym to get that six-pack and be tanned and ripped at the beach. You're going to the gym to be better in the jiu-jitsu mats. Because you think, okay, I'm stronger, I'm more physically able, I can lift this amount, I can squat this, I can deadlift this. My biceps get really big. Not a lot of translation into jiu-jitsu, but you kind of find yourself doing something in the gym and thinking, okay, how does this relate back to my sport? And the sport kind of encapsulates the whole fitness aspect of the gym. Whereas if you didn't kind of have that connection, you might just go to the gym to work out and look good. But yeah, I definitely only go to the gym to be better at jiu-jitsu. And I think if I was to translate over into something like boxing, if I moved and couldn't do jiu-jitsu anymore, I would, again, tailor my gym workouts to work in with my martial art. And I think that's just inherent in martial arts, and doing it is it kind of encapsulate everything you do physically. And it binds itself into it.
It's definitely important. And for the people that have done a martial art and have stuck with it for a decent amount of time, they never regret it. It's very rare when they do. And I'm trying to get as many people to do jiu-jitsu. Like it's like seeing the light. It's like a Jehovah's Witness. You know what I mean? They come and knock on knock on your door.
If it clicks with you, because some people really don't like how violent it is.
Yeah, but jiu-jitsu is one of those ones where, with Muay Thai, like you said, you have those
Not a lot of
concussions.
there's way less people that. Well, see, Muay
And
Thai's
for us, Harvey says it's the best.
Muay Thai
You
is
have
great.
infinite
But
lives with jiu-jitsu.
the thing with jiu-jitsu is it's its advantage and its disadvantage. With Muay Thai, you can hit pads like boxing. If you go to boxing, right, you don't have to ever get into a sparring situation with someone. You can just go hit pads for fitness. Great sport for fitness. You go get a trainer who knows how to hold pads. You go get your gloves and you go hit pads for 20, 40 minutes, get a great workout, great sweat on, easy, 200 calories burned, done. You can do the same thing with Muay Thai. You just involve the elbows, the knees into it, and you can get a great workout. You can spar. A lot of people do spar when they do Muay Thai training, but it's not a necessary part of engaging in the sport itself, right? But with Jiu-Jitsu, you can't do it by yourself. Like even if you have a hanging kick bag for Muay Thai, you can train your roundhouse kicks, you can train your spinning kicks, and you can do it by yourself, along with boxing. But with jiu-jitsu, you can't train by yourself. You always need a partner to focus up on against. And so, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, it's hard, and it can be quite violent. So, here's a scenario. If I double leg Sid, tackle him to the ground, I take his back, I wrap my legs around his abdomen, squeeze them in what's called a body triangle so he can't breathe, and then I wrap my left arm around his throat, put the right one behind my arm like this, and Sid's neck's in this gap here. That's quite violent, and it's very uncomfortable. And I think if someone walked off the street and they might have done karate in the past, got their black belt in 6 months, right, all that shabam fake stuff, and they sit down with a guy like me who's very nice, works with people all day, is very kind-hearted, little lamb inside, you could say, and then the so-called warrior in the garden comes out when it's time to go at it. That's
for sure.
Not nice. I don't like that. I don't want to do this sport anymore. It's violent and it hurts. And you can't do jiu-jitsu necessarily. You kind of can if you want to flow roll with someone, which is kind of like a rhythmic, not trying to tap each other, just kind of rolling with the things and flowing. You can kind of do it like that. But true jiu-jitsu needs to have some sort of aggression behind it. It needs to be a aggressor and a defender. And you could both be aggressors. And it doesn't really work if you're both
Just
passive.
on that flow rolling thing, do you think that you do still need a certain level of proficiency in jiu-jitsu to flow roll?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you're just coming, you've been at the gym for a month, maybe not even a month, say 2 weeks, you're still just trying to smash everyone.
Yeah, and I think of flow rolling like this. If you took an F1 driver and you put them in a Toyota Corolla and you told them to go drive around the street, that'd be very easy for them. Very easy for them to just drive around the street. But if you took someone who's never driven a car ever in their life and you told them to go hop on and drive around the street, they'd be very unaware of what's going on. So if you take someone who is a purple belt, brown belt, you tell them to flow roll with another brown belt, that flow is going to be very smooth, it's going to be very methodical, it's going to be very flowy. But if you took two brand new people and you told them how to go flow roll, they're like, what the heck is flow roll? I don't know how my body moves. I don't know where to put this, how to cinch up a triangle and then let go and turn it into an armbar, Kimura, and then to a back take and then to the side control again. So you need a little bit of proficiency to flow roll, because if you don't know how your body naturally wants to move and go in and out of moves, because that's the whole point, is to get people in stuff, get you in a reverse triangle off your back, let go, turn it into a Kimura, turn it into a back take, let you take top mount, roll over, let you take my back, and then roll into things. So it's very smooth and very flowy. So you need a bit of proficiency to be able to do that. But yeah, getting back to the off-putting aspect of it, I really wish there was an easy and soft way to introduce people into jiu-jitsu. But I remember on my first day, I went up against this little blonde chick who was probably no more than 45 kgs. She was a 4-stripe white belt. And I came in, I was 75 kgs at the time. God, that's scary. I've put on almost, oh God, what's that? 25 kgs in 3 years. That's a lot of weight. But she absolutely destroyed me. She got on top, she cross-collar choked me and armbarred me, footlock. And I was like, whoa, that's freaky. Because I know if we stood up, I got to toss everybody in the class, in a judo sense. But it's never a smooth transition into the start of jiu-jitsu. It's always some sort of pain, and I think that's what puts a lot of people off it. It's not like you're learning golf. They give you a little putter at the start, and you're just going to kind of putt around the holes, and then you start doing the 5-iron, and then you go back and you start driving things. It's very sudden, and it can be quite scary for people, and I think that is what puts a lot of people off. Is you can't really do it in a smooth and kind way. You can be nice about it, but eventually after 2 or 3 weeks you need to start kind of teaching this person that there has to be a little bit of force and momentum behind these things, because otherwise if you're just soft all the time, then they're never going to really learn how to progress. Otherwise they're just going to be soft about it and they're not going to actually enjoy the martial art. Can we take a break?
Yeah, we've been going for a while.
Little bathroom break.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah?
Yep.
You want to cut it?
Oh, I can just cut it in the edit.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, go on. You know where it is.
I will be back.
Sweet. Right. Ready?
Hit me.
Back to your regularly scheduled programming team.
Thank you for waiting.
Right. The last thing I want to touch on, man, and this is something that I'm dealing with in jiu-jitsu at the moment.
Oh, this is about to get a bit deep.
Is going into rolling with a winner's mindset. And I don't mean this in the sense of going in for the submission every time you roll with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't necessarily mean this in I have this particular technique that I want to work on, and if I work on that, then that's what I want to get out of it. What I mean is going into a role with confidence. Because something that one of the guys at the gym told me was just come into the role with all you need, man. Like you're getting better. It's just the confidence thing. Just come in with a little more confidence, and that's all. That's really the next step for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that coming into it with confidence is the best way to do it, because the problem with that being is if you come into it with confidence, but you come up against me, I'm going to destroy that confidence in about 30 seconds if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. So then what do you do then? Your confidence is obliterated.
Yep.
So then what? What have you got left after that? So I think that the most important thing to come into a situation like that is concentrating on not worrying about what happens. Because if you flow like water, be water, my friend, then you're not upset at the end of it if you do get destroyed. Or you're also not so over the moon if you submit this person 5 times that you then base your entire day around the fact that you've submitted this person 5 times. So if you come into it with an empty mindset and not with any confidence or any doubt, you just go in and you go, okay, let's do this and see what happens, then you will always come out learning something from it. Okay, I know I can beat that person. I submitted them 5 times. Great. Okay, if I roll with that person next time, maybe I can start on my back and I'll start with them on top of me and top mount. Or if you get absolutely destroyed, maybe you go, okay, with this person I need to work on retaining my guard and being very defensive. So I think if you come into it with confidence, unless it's someone you know you can beat and you know that you're going to be able to retain that same level of confidence that you have going into it, then it's a very dangerous route, because anything can happen at any point. Someone who's a lot smaller than you but maybe a little more skillful in one particular area of the martial art will be able to use that to their advantage and crush your confidence. And I mean, have you ever gone into a role like that, just concentrating on feeling confident, and has it worked out? Or
yeah, what I mean by that is not necessarily going into the role timid.
What's wrong with timid?
Well, I think it does
By
get
the way,
in
I
the
do
way.
think being timid is wrong, but what's wrong with it?
Well, I just think you end up using less. So, for example, if I'm
Cause,
if I go into a role with somebody quite a bit bigger, higher belt maybe.
me.
Yeah, all right. And and to be fair, I won't say you because whenever we're both at the gym together, you're always my first role. Somebody else maybe, and I go into the roles, starting out a little bit, not really. I know they're gonna submit me, right? It's only just as a matter of time. So they pass my guard. They're in side control now. Side control pressure's on me. They're way bigger than me, so the weight on my chest is massive. What my original state was, my original mental state would have been, well, what's the point now? I'm just going to keep getting smashed.
Why is that a bad thing?
I just don't think you end up learning anything in that way, particularly
you're very wrong. You're very wrong.
I mean, in the sense of doing it. If you've done it for a certain period of time, if you've just started, it's one thing, but
it doesn't matter.
Go.
So when I roll with Andy,
yep.
Andy being roughly the same size as me, I'm a bit taller than him, but he's quite strong. He's a black belt. If I go into every roll with Andy and end up in the same position that I do every time, being absolutely smashed, and then at the end of it, I go, oh, what was the point of that? Well, I haven't learned anything. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with rolling with, say, the same person every time for your entire jiu-jitsu career. And say if you and me did nothing but train jiu-jitsu our entire lives, we're at the same gym, we always train together every day. If we can keep training at the same rate, and I never take time off, you never take time off, say hypothetically, there is not a chance in the world that you will ever beat me if I keep training at the same rate as you do and we train together. But that doesn't mean that you're not learning anything from getting beaten by me every time. And I think this again comes back to what I said earlier of going into the role with nothing in your head about what may or may happen. Because if you go in, the reason you're feeling timid is because you think you could do better. And you feel defeated because you think, oh, I shouldn't have let this happen. But that's only because you've gone into it with an expectation of what should happen or what you might be capable of doing with this person. So if you go into it, try it with a smaller person. Go with someone who's just started. They might be same size or smaller than you. And let them take your back. And maybe let them tap you. And then kind of assess how you feel. Do you feel really angry? Are you upset that they've tapped you? And if you are, maybe you're going into this with something to achieve. Now, you can go into it with something to achieve, like you want to work on something. Like I'll often, these days, I'll ask people to either start in side control or I'll let them take my back and I'll work on my back defense. But if I let them work to my back and then my back defense doesn't work and they tap me, it's okay. And you could say I would be timid in that regard because I'm letting them take my back, get me to a vulnerable position and then submit me. But there's nothing wrong with that. Because the only thing I've come into that situation with is I want to work on this little thing. But if I try to work on that little thing and it doesn't work out, that's okay. And I'm not saying that failure in life is okay, but there has to be a part of you that is okay to fail. Because if you don't, then you'll fail 5-6 weeks in a row and then you just won't want to come back because all you think about is the fact that I've failed. Whereas, and you might experience that if you come into it trying to be all confident, trying to be all hyped up, I'm really going to go hard. I'm going to try to not get subbed. I'm going to do all this. If you feed your ego with all this stuff that, I'm better than this person, I'm not going to get submitted. When you do, the whole structure falls apart. So, especially with something like jiu-jitsu, you need to come into the role. I would say have something that you want to work on, but don't worry about the outcome. Because if you worry about the outcome, and I discovered this myself, if you worry about the outcome, you will always be disappointed. Because if you get the outcome, it's like, okay, cool, now what? Okay, so I've just submitted this person 10 times. What did I learn? I learned that I can sub this person 10 times. Not a lot learnt there,
Mm.
right? You might have already rolled with this person before. You know you can submit them 10 times. If you get tapped 10 times, if they defeat you 10 times, well, if you haven't got anything you've been trying to work on during that roll, all you've got is the fact that they tapped you 10 times and the defeat and the emotional downfall that comes with that. Whereas if you're not worried about the outcome of the roll, if you just want to go work on your guard retention, it doesn't matter if you only get 2 seconds of guard retention in a 5-10 minute roll. What you've learnt is that you can do 2 seconds. Okay, can I do 5 seconds next time? Okay, next time you can do 5 seconds. This is all the same person. Cool. Next time, can I do 30 seconds?
Just your change of perspective.
Well, you can't have anything to outrightly achieve apart from working on some part of your skill set that's a weakness maybe, because otherwise, and I'm not saying don't be competitive, I'm not saying if you want to go tap someone that you shouldn't chase for it. You should always be chasing the submission. But if you are so worried about coming into it, feeling confident, hyping yourself up, and then if that gets destroyed, you have nothing again to work off. And yeah, so that's why I don't agree with that kind of going in feeling a certain type of way, because you don't know what's going to happen, and then you're creating a basis for you to fail. Whereas if you go into it as a learning exercise, something where you want to practice a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it doesn't matter what happens in between, as long as you practice that thing you wanted to work on despite the outcome, then you'll be out better on the other side. Because I've tried the other way, where I go, oh, yeah, I'm going to beat this person. It doesn't work.
And when they...
Because the outcome of beating them is
yeah.
not satisfying enough to live up to the hype that I gave myself before the roll. And if I get absolutely wiped out, well, then
the
that's
confidence
just,
destroyed, like you said.
it's just the most depressing thing on earth. So you need to come into it, and you need to be water, as the famous Bruce Lee says, and you just need to go into it empty and just try to practice something you might have learnt, or maybe ask the person to show you something, but don't go in with a mindset of wanting to not be defeated or defeat this person, because either way, eventually you're going to run up to someone that you can defeat 10 times, and then you run up to the next person who will be able to whip you for eternity. Yeah.
Amazing.
Love it.
I'm sure my mother will also love this episode.
I hope she does.
Is there anything else you want to have a yarn about, mate? We've been going for about an hour and, what was it, an hour and 10, hour and 15 maybe?
I think the only thing I have to say is I haven't found anything else is beneficial to my physical and mental health than the practice of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu with a good amount of friends and an amazing coach.
I would agree with that as well.
And if you can, and you want to push yourself to a physical and mental limit that is not able to be achieved with, I would say, almost anything else, I think the practice of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is a excellent place to be. And if you live close to East Auckland, you should come out to Bucklands Beach Jiu Jitsu under Andy Metcalf.
Shout out.
We've got classes almost every day. Come out and give it a go. Come have a roll with James and Sid.
Ladies and gentlemen, James Boyd for the second time. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
All right, let's wrap this up.